Hey guys, welcome to the first of our API Innovators series. This is a new live stream series we're going to do with people who are taking the D4H API, that's an application programming interface, so allowing two software systems to talk to each other, the D4H API, and innovating with it. So they're building interesting things to see what they can integrate in systems. And today, what we're going to do, we're going to go and visit Burnham-on-Sea. So that's BARB Search and Rescue, if anyone knows them. And we're going to take a look at their live dashboard they've built for in their station. Now, Michael's going to talk us through that. Before we do, what I'm going to do is just bring up my screen. If I can get that up, Amy, that'd be great. So where is Burnham-on-Sea? We'd like to introduce all of our guests, show you where it is. So they're in the UK. Where are we? I need to find the UK here. And we'll go all around to Europe. Okay, you're familiar with the UK. And they're just here south of Bristol, across the estuary from Cardiff. This is Burnham-on-Sea. And I think already it's probably obvious what the challenges they have are, right? Look at this terrain. Loads of mud. And what do you need for mud? Mud rescue? You guessed it, hovercrafts, right? So BARB Search and Rescue specialize in these hovercrafts. Ideal for crossing mud flats, rescuing people cut off by the tide. How are we doing? Is Michael available? I know we were having some connectivity problems at the start, but here we go. Michael, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Just in time.
Good, good.
Michael was trying to join us from their station, so he could actually show us the dashboard he's built on camera. But we were struggling with connection, so I was saying do a reverse call out, try and get home as quickly as you can. But we've got a perfect connection now, Michael. That's great.
Brilliant.
So can you tell us a little bit about BARB Search and Rescue? I've done a bit of an intro there around hovercraft, mud rescue, people cut off by the tide.
Yeah, so BARB Search and Rescue was kind of born in 1992, and then I think 1994, Annika Rice came to Burnham-on-Sea and built the boathouse or the station for us. And then during that time, we operated rescue boats. But then in 2002, there was a tragedy of a little girl, Lena Hall, who got caught in the mud and sadly died. And in which case, the local newspapers done a fundraising event to raise a hovercraft for Burnham-on-Sea. And that's how it all started. So I think if you scroll down there somewhere, you probably see our original hovercraft. It's the one with the cabin on. Maybe, no. But yeah, it's certainly on the fleet page anyway. So that's where we are.
Fantastic. Tell us about Hovercraft Rescue. What's unique about it?
So the idea is to be able to get to the person as quickly and safely as possible. Historically, Coast Guards would tend to need to walk across the mud, which can take minutes, tens of minutes in some cases, whereas a hovercraft, as you can imagine, hovers above the ground and can safely get Coast Guard and casualty there and back.
Okay, very good. So when you say bring Coast Guard there, is that part of your role, transporting them?
It is, yeah. So we work alongside and with the Coast Guard. We train with the Coast Guard, and also we ensure that everything that we do is along the lines of the Coast Guard, and we just work together, really.
Yeah. Okay. And so tell me about hovercraft. Just give a quick explainer for people who've never even seen a hovercraft.
Okay, so in effect it has a hull similar to how a boat would, but in our case we have two engines. We have a lift engine and a thrust engine. Mm-hmm. So the lift engine is at the front, right directly in front of the pilot, and that's what gives it its lift and raises it off the ground. In effect, it's a lawnmower engine. It's a relatively small 13 horsepower Briggs & Stratton lawnmower engine at the front, with a fan blade that just creates our lift. And at the back, we have the thrust engine, again, relatively small, Briggs & Stratton Vanguard 35 horsepower engine that provides us with forward thrust.
Fantastic. And it looks like it seats 4 plus stretcher.
5 at a push, I suppose. So traditionally, when we take the Coast Guard out, there'd be two BARB, so there'd be the pilot and a crew. So the idea is that we take a crew member out, sort of a contingency if the pilot's unable to continue. And then we have the 2 Coast Guard, and as you can see there, we'd have the stretcher as well, and the Coast Guard would sit each side of the stretcher on the floor, in effect. Okay.
And so you've I hear the term there, pilot rather than coxswain or helm.
Yeah. So I think it pretty much becomes from it is off the ground. So in a case you're technically flying.
Okay, cool. And does the crew have specific responsibilities?
Yeah. So in situations where it is needed to lean, it's not very often, because you can do most of the control purely from steering, but the crew is generally there to aid the Coast Guard and the casualty, whereas the pilot is solely in charge of the craft. So the idea is that the pilot doesn't leave the craft or the controls while the engines are running.
How unique is BARB with the hovercrafts? How many other hovercraft teams are there?
There's certainly a couple I know of. There's one relatively locally, and I think there's one a bit further up north. And I think there's quite a few abroad as well. So
sure. But are you coming up with your own training standards? Is there?
Yeah. So I think when we originally obtained or was granted the hovercraft from the fundraising, there was training that was given to the pilots initially, and then it was a case of train the trainer. And there's a 2-year competency that you have to follow. Additional competencies that progress as your experience progresses. It's all logged on D4H, so we store all of our competencies, expiry dates, and we get alerts as to when they're due to be renewed. We try and train as often as possible.
And you're wearing Swiftwater Rescue sort of PPE as well.
Yeah. So we wear dry suits, PFD for water, helmets, anti-helmets, and throw lines. You mentioned SLS. We are affiliated with SLSGB as well. So a number of the crew are Swiftwater Rescue technicians.
Excellent.
Well,
tell me about some recent call-outs. What kind of stuff from your website site? I can see there's a number of missing people recently.
Yeah, so our call-outs generally range from missing persons to mud rescues to swan rescues as well, to be fair. So I think probably one of the last ones on there was a few children got stuck in the mud down in Breen. So we were tasked and paged from Burnham, and we flew from Burnham down to Breen, liaised with Burnham Coast Guard, and successfully got the persons back up to the top of the beach.
Fantastic. What's your role in the team?
So I'm a pilot. So there's about half a dozen of us that are pilots and a few in training as well. I'm also Swiftwater trained as well.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And so you started using D4H about 2020. How did that improve things in general?
Yeah, I mean, D4H, we store pretty much everything on there, I think. So from crew, personal information to equipment and call outs, events, incidents, and pretty much everything.
Brilliant. And you saw a problem then around calling people out, or in the station you needed a dashboard?
Yeah, so I think it originally came about, I started looking around, see what was available, just to be able to get a bit more information in there. It's one of those things that kind of grew from a simple show who's on off call to pretty much getting a route level based on who's on call, what roles they can fulfill, tight times and everything else. So it's just one of those things that's grown.
Brilliant. So what was the original problem you were trying to solve?
It was pretty much just getting the information there on screen without, I think you can imagine if you're kitting up and something else happens and you're not sure who's coming in, you're constantly checking your phone, see who's on their way. But if you can look there and just see who's off call, you know this pilot will be here, this pilot will be here. They won't.
And so do you have a pager system, text messages, phone calls?
We do, yeah. We have a pager system, yeah.
And so that goes off, and anybody who's nearby makes their way to the station as quick as they can. And you're saying you're there in your dry suit, helmet, gloves, the works, and you don't have your phone at this point. And so now you can look up at a screen and see who's on call.
Who's on call? We've got asset locations as well, number of call outs, and the weather. Really? So I think wind is probably a key one for us. Using hovercraft in high winds over 35 miles an hour is a bit tricky. So
do you have any screenshots of that? I know you were going to do it in the station.
I do, yeah. I tried to send you one, but what's the best way of sending it to you? Can I drop it in the chat?
If you're able to present your screen, works too. There's a little present button at the bottom.
It is in portrait mode, so it might not work overly well.
Right.
Let's see that one. There we go. How's that rendering?
It should come up. Yeah, great. We might not. Yeah, perfect. Is there one with a view with us over on top of each other, so you'll get the board to the left work?
Let's try that again. So if I do that window,
if you just share your screen, Michael, we should be able to rearrange it.
Yeah. How's that? Is that shared?
It'll come up now. Yeah, Amy, there's a view there with I think there's a full kind of portrait on the left, and our pictures above and below each other would work. That's the one. Okay. Perfect. Oh, we're missing the top, but Michael, maybe you can scroll or resize it, and it'll affect it. And talk us through what we can see anyway.
So just I can't actually scroll it. I think it's because it is portrait mode. But what you can't see is at the top left is the number of call outs for the current year.
Yeah.
So again, a D4H API call just to retrieve the count, I suppose, for the current year. Directly below that, we have the route level. So that's probably a work in progress. It's ongoing because there's a few things to consider with how we calculate that, I suppose. So we take into account the number of pilots that are on call, number of crew, tide times, weather, and various other things. Top right is just a live feed of the seafront. Nothing particularly.
Amy, could you zoom that back out again? Yeah, that's perfect there. Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, of course. And then we have the middle section, which is current tide times for today, and then the weather. As you can see, probably one of the, as I said, one of the most useful ones there is the wind gusts. Mm-hmm. So anything over 30 or 35, we tend to consider how we're going to handle various things and wind direction as well. We've then got, as you can see on the left-hand side, the on-call and off-call. So all our crew's initials, rather than full names, their crew numbers, and you might see a few P's and T's there. So that's our probationary crew members and trainee crew members. So that would generally be used in defining what the route count would be. Sure. And then on the right-hand side, we've got the GPS of our hovercraft. And
what are you using to track those?
Sorry?
What do you use for the GPS tracking?
It's Global Tracker, I think it was. And
so they've got a SIM card in them?
There's a little device that's attached to the craft and the vehicles.
Very good. There's lots of people interested in that for sure. So on call, we have a question coming in here from Chris. Because Chris is asking, it looks nice. What tech stack did you use?
What tech stack? So it's built on WordPress. So we use our existing website, and to be fair, most of what's on there is PHP. So it allows me to fully customize what we have.
So you're doing a call to the D4H, the Team Manager API, or some of you know it, and you're requesting a list of on-call members, and then a list of off-call members.
Yeah. Very
good. Is it it's just showing who's on call now? Does it? I can't quite see the detail, but it's saying.
So we've got there's two columns for each section. So there's the crew name, initials, and number, and then also when they go off call. So if they're currently on call, but they're off call at 8 p.m. tonight, if call out came in at 7:55, we would know that they're probably not going to turn up, sort of thing. And similarly, the same for who's currently off call. We just show when they're next on call.
Perfect. Any thoughts on anything else you'll add to it, or anything we could do to help you with it?
I mean, to be fair, this changes weekly, so there's various tweaks we do just to move things around, add additional information. I think the REAP level only went on there about a week or two ago, so there's plenty. I think probably will add.
Brilliant. So how often are you polling the data? How live is it?
It's every minute at the moment. There's various technical things I'd like to change, because at the moment I think it's just refreshing the page, but I'd just like to specifically call certain APIs at a certain period.
Yeah.
Because the tide times, we don't need to call every minute. We can do that twice a day, and that will be sufficient. Call outs once a day is probably sufficient, but things like the REAP level, on and off call and asset locations is pretty much, we need it probably less than every minute, to be fair.
Yeah, very cool. So are you running an extension in the browser in the station that's refreshing it, or how are you doing that on the page?
Yes, so it's a page refresh. There's a WordPress plugin. It was kind of a short-term solution until I modify various other things, just to make sure we just call what we need, but just to get things up and running and making sure we're getting everything instantly as possible, and to make sure it's all refreshing correctly. It's a refresh plugin.
Very good. So this has been fascinating so far. What I see, Chris was on there asking questions. I'm putting two and two together and thinking that Chris is Sarchap on Twitter. And if it is, Chris, we're looking to see what you build with our API. And hopefully we'll have you on another week. If anyone does have any questions, this is completely live. So you can post your questions on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. It is Chris. Great. And that sounds great. Okay. So, Amy, could I get my screen back? So we've just done a large update of Q3, what went out, and everything. You can go on to updates.d4h.com for any updates on what we do. You'll see there's a whole set of, if you're not familiar with the products, Operations Center is our incident management and real-time environment. There's lots been going on in that. And Team Manager is what we've been looking at here, which is the on-call stuff. So there is a mention in here of API v3. It won't be, we won't switch off v2 and for quite some time. So there's no concerns they're working on v2 today. But API v3 is a more performant, more fully featured API for the product. We're actually moving our product onto API v3 at the moment. Michael, is there any other functionality that you would have liked to have seen in the API? Anything you thought was missing?
For what I've used so far, not as of yet. There are ideas that we've been discussing about creating tablet apps for iOS and Android to be able to log incidents on the go. Mm-hmm. So that's probably our next challenge, I suppose. But certainly for what we've used for the API so far, there's been no problems I've come across. I think I asked a question, and I think this is how this interview came about, but it was just one of those. I can't even remember what the question was now, to be fair, but it was, I don't think it was a D4H related question as such. It was something else on the WordPress side of things. So that was all sorted relatively easily.
Gotcha. So all the documentation is up online as well. Did you find that okay to use?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So and anyone can email help@d4h.com. We'll try and sort you out as well. But everything is here. For example, return a list of your incidents. Fill in information, create incidents. So you can interact with the entire piece of software. Our own mobile apps are built off this API, so it should work through. There's a question there from Amy. Have we heard of any other ways other teams are using D4H's API? I've heard of a couple of dashboards. I've heard of a couple of people who've connected up their pager systems. So they get a page and it automatically creates a draft incident with the details of the text of the page. We've got some people who've connected the operation center up as well. So it automatically creates an incident and notifies people. With people, paging system, lots of things. People connected in sending text messages out from their paging system and then starting an incident in D4H as well. So there seems to be lots of pieces for it. And we're very keen to help anyone who's looking to do something with it, support them, and we're getting to see lots of cool functionality. Michael, anything else you want to show us or comments or anything I can answer for you?
I think I'm good. No, that's it. I think I'm good.
Other thing interesting for people, SAR volunteer by night, I guess. What are you by day?
Software engineer.
There we go. Perfect. So
not so much web, more desktop. This was all new. Well, not new, but a revisit of college days, I suppose, and a bit more modern to what I was used to.
Very cool. Anyone else who's got any projects they'd like featured on this series? We're going to keep featuring people who are building things. We want to inspire and show people. And anything you need from us, do reach out and ask. Michael, fantastic to talk to you.
Thank you for inviting.
Thanks very much.